And welcome back to Stand Strong. Christopher Perilli, all the way from New Jersey, right?
New Jersey, originally from New York, yes.
Originally from New York. And yeah, I was having a look at the map today, thinking about where exactly you guys are. And you're sort of central, right?
Central, yeah. There's actually in New Jersey, there's a big debate. There's like no such thing as central. So I guess we're South New Jersey.
Yep. Okay, cool. And what's going on there at the moment, you guys? Crazy stuff in the US.
Man, it's been a crazy couple of months. So you got half, I guess, to take the politicalness out of it, we got half a country that's kind of locked down, and then the other half of the country is not locked down. And there's this big political debate going on, red and blue, and the coronavirus. Look, from what I've gathered, coronavirus doesn't really discriminate against who you're voting for. So now it seems like in Florida, things are starting to ignite. Arizona is starting to become a hot spot. So it's kind of moved out of the tri-state area or the Northeast, and it's, I guess, making its way down to other areas. But it's a crazy situation. I mean, where I live, you can't go into a store without a mask on.
Crazy.
So, yeah, it's been a crazy, strange couple of months.
And like for you guys, you're safe where you are as far as your local sort of area?
Yeah, my area is kind of tucked away a little bit. So we're about an hour outside of New York. We're about an hour outside of Philly. We're kind of very centralized located. So we're pretty safe over here. But if you go into the cities and go towards the city, it gets a little crazy.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Not in my time, especially like we're very close to following the States, right? Like in Australia, all the political stuff that happens in the States sort of rolls onto us as well, right? And I think people have sort of seen it roll onto the UK with actual riots. Australians are a little bit too laid back for any of that. Like we're just sort of like, yeah, it'll be fine, and no one turns up, sort of thing. But it is happening sort of here, but just not in a riot type sense, right? And yeah, very concerning. And so I've been thinking about you guys and thinking about everybody in the States, and wishing you guys the best. And also, I guess when we think about the industry having lockdown and businesses basically grinding to a halt, especially for martial arts, have you guys sort of found it for rolling back into classes, or are you finding it segmented that some states and some areas can come back in and some can't? What's your thoughts at the moment on the ground there?
It's completely all over the place, from state to state. And then to talk about like what you just said, throwing into the mix the riots and the looting and the protests. One of our team members recently had to go somewhere and got literally stuck in where he had to go. It took him 3.5 hours to get to where he had to go because there was protesters blocking the roads and stuff like that. So you throw that into the mix and it's crazy. So when it comes to, I guess, martial arts schools, specifically here in New Jersey, we're still, I think, we're just getting into phase 2. So we won't see gyms opening legit for at least a little bit. I believe that they're starting to do outdoor workouts. Other states haven't even shut. So it's really a mixed bag. It depends on where you are and where you're located to talk to people. But I've heard everything from people not getting back into October to people getting in a couple of weeks to people being open and still servicing customers. So, that's the thing with the United States is every single state kind of governs itself and has their own guidelines and how you have to proceed. Also, too, within the states, you have counties and cities and whatnot that have some places might be hit harder than others, and they're being locked down and staying locked down for a longer time. So it's really very location dependent.
Yeah, it seems like super frustrating. And also considering that even with people that open up again, there is a bit of uncertainty. Like, do we even open up again, right? Like I know that the karate I do, the sensei couldn't open up because he was just like, well, if it opens and then closes and then all the hassle around it, small dojo, right? He's sort of like, well, what's the point? I'll just wait, right? And then you have others that just absolutely have to open up. So they do, even when we go back to sort of 20 classes, right? 20-person classes. And it is fragmented and all over the place and very uncertain. And in some of our states, we're down to virtually 0 cases, right? So those states, they're sort of rolling back into gear. And I've never seen anything like it with lead gen. It's amazing. Awesome. Best lead gen I've ever run in a way, right?
Yeah.
And all those leads that we bring in, people are just signing up because everybody's been stuck at home for 3 months. They want to go out and do something, and they want to do something new, which is really cool, right? But then you have other states where they're, oh, we're going to open next week. No, we're not. And then we are. And then it's just, and they have a little outbreak and it's driving them crazy, basically, like Victoria and New South Wales here. And so similar to the states in a way, like we've got such big geographical differences between places. And yeah, it's just super crazy. And I think it's frustrating for a lot of business owners who see a protest and go, well, we can't open with 20 people spaced out. And
but there's 10,000 outside.
And I think that's hugely frustrating. And yeah, it's very, very crazy. So for you guys, do you find that how have you guys gone as far as business with, are people spending that time actually doing video and other marketing? And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I speak to a lot of people who actually run lead acquisition campaigns, and they're saying like right now, leads are coming through the door crazy. On top of it, if you think about it, like Facebook and social media platforms, a lot of the bigger businesses, a lot of the big companies pulled a lot of their ad spend because, they didn't have offices open. So it kind of ushered in a low cost for ad spend. That said, there's like a dichotomy in that sense. There's two different mindsets where, a lot of people are bored out of their face. I'm today, I weighed myself on 195. When I was training jiu-jitsu regularly, I was 183. So I put on like, a good amount of weight. Pretty much everybody I know that I've seen so far has put on some weight. People are looking to get back into the thing, into getting some stuff done. But on the other side of the spectrum, you have people that are leery. So there's two camps, I find. I guess there's the mindset of people are going to, continue on with their online classes. They're going to continue to serve people that way, and they're going to slowly roll into it. And like you said, some people are leery about opening right away. I guess it's a matter of, like, if I open and have to shut again, what does that entail? Or if I open too early, I talk about this in my group a lot. The court of law is very different than the court of public opinion, right? So if somebody gets sick in your school and then that gets out, the mob is very fickle. The crowds are very fickle.
Not just the pixel mob.
Not just pixel mob. The mob is very, very fickle. And like, I've seen situations, especially in New Jersey, where, they've garnered so much attention from the news, and then cops come down, the government comes down, and the government shuts them down. So that we happen to live in a very liberal state, which is heavily controlled often by the government. Other states have more freedoms. It's just such a mixed bag. So like, I literally, whenever I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, where are you? Where are you located? Where are you located in that state? And like, what is the feel around you? Because some people are gung-ho, they're ready to go. And then some people are like, I don't even want to go to a gym or train. I was talking to a buddy of mine recently, and he's like, I don't plan on going back to jiu-jitsu for quite some time. And me, I'm itching to get back, but the schools are all shut down.
Well, I mean, like on this subject, what do you think about doing online classes? Because when it first all happened, I looked at it and I thought, nah, it's, I thought people are going to martial arts for in-person stuff. And obviously BJJ, absolutely no way. Like I've started BJJ since, right, coming back in because I wanted to try something new as well, right? And I've had to get a cortisol shot in my shoulder already, actually, doing that. It's a bit of fun. But my whole attitude initially was, no way people are going to do online classes, not as a long-term thing, right? And then we sort of saw this, that everybody jumped behind it in the industry, which was cool. And there was a lot of uptake. Like I saw a lot of places with huge uptake of online classes, but it seems to have sort of petered as it's gone along, as people begin to sort of wait for open up again. That's in Australia. How have you guys found it over there as far as online classes, marketing for that, doing lead gen, actually selling people into those programs?
Yeah, so we've seen, definitely at the beginning, we've seen a huge uptick. I guess everybody was forced to go online. You had no choice. And then in the middle of it, there are a lot of people who were saying, it's harder to keep people's attention when you're not in the same proximity as somebody, you don't feel the energy in the room the same way you do as if you were in a class. That said, you know, jiu-jitsu, you definitely need a body. You need somebody to train with. It's not like a striking art where like Muay Thai or karate where you could pretty much stand there and shadow box if you had to for a whole class. The jiu-jitsu thing, though, we have a bunch of people in our programs. One guy named Perilli, he actually created an online at-home jiu-jitsu program, and it is badass. I was really surprised at how well it is. Like, I was watching all the videos and everything that they've been creating, and I was like, wow, this came out good. And the trailers, too, look really great. So there's that, you know, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I think they're one of the most hardest hit. But there's a guy, very well-known jiu-jitsu guy, Tom DeBlass in New Jersey, and he's been running Zoom classes now, and he has them packed to the gills, and he's still teaching, and everybody's still learning, and they love it. But then there's also the other side of the mindset of people in like the MMA and jiu-jitsu. They're like, I never signed up for, you know, online classes. I don't like being an online instructor. My students don't like it. So it's really, again, it's a mixed bag. But we are seeing, like, we were creating during that time, we were creating a lot of videos for people to use, marketing materials for online classes. And they did really well for the people who were using them. I found that we're kind of in that weird area of, we're not sure what time we're getting back, but people are starting to focus on getting back again. So I definitely see a little bit dip with the online stuff, but I don't think the online stuff is going to go away anytime soon. Yeah, no, I'd agree with some of that. I mean, the BJJ, you'd need either a partner or a dummy, you know, and you're going to be learning some fundamentals, really, isn't it? But yeah, ongoing long term, that'd be too hard. In say karate, the karate I do has got lots of Japanese in it, and lots of you've got to learn a whole series of things at each kai level, right? So that I can sit and do some stuff. I can do the katas, right? But really, there's bunkai I can't do, right? It's the actual physically doing it with people. So yeah, I think there's some limitations. If you had a partner, I think you could do BJJ as an online thing. And I certainly watch a lot of YouTube video, even when I'm going to class, just to pick up stuff anyway, right? But yeah, I mean, like when people are sort of thinking that it will stay post opening of actual physical classes, I think there's probably some of the technical aspects and the learning stuff. But even with that, like I'll watch videos and then I'll go and like, this might be specific to BJJ, but you go and do it in class and then you're like, no, I even need a video of me so I can watch it back and go, oh no, it's totally wrong. You know what I mean? Because you sort of, when you've got someone in your face, it's much harder to put those things into practice anyway. But yeah, it is super interesting, like to try and translate something that is so in-person and so visceral, and people come for that visceral experience into an online environment. But people do it relatively well, have done it relatively well before this even. Like I know Gracie University has a whole course that they do for people, but you have to have a partner and you have to film it and send it into them and stuff like that. So that's a super interesting sort of paradigm for it as well. And so tell me about as well with Pixel Mob. I know you guys use influencers a little bit for the business because you guys do so much other stuff as well. But how would you sort of use that in a martial arts context as well? Well, when you say use influencers, elaborate. Yeah. So like, I guess my understanding, right, because I don't do this part of marketing. I don't do the sort of PR or influencer marketing, right, is using it more for product placement. That would be my understanding of using influencers. Or if you had them in a gym, having them post their experience, right? And so that you could pick, I would think, micro influencers around your community and get them in. Yeah. But for you guys, like, how do you use that within your marketing? To be completely honest with you, we've just been lucky in the sense of getting people. We've worked with some pretty big names and just had the opportunity to get testimonials from them. A lot of times we haven't even asked and they just give it to us. And I'm like, wow, that's really awesome. In the sense of, a martial arts school using it in a smaller fashion, I think exactly what you said would be key. Getting people that are prominent in the neighborhood, in the community, to train with you and then give off the cuff testimonial. That really, social proof is some of the best stuff out there that you could use. You know, a lot of people spend a lot of time with their marketing and stuff like that, but other people talking about your business is going to always be the best, you know, way for your brand to grow without having to spend a lot of money and without having to spend a lot of time and stuff like that. So I definitely think that if you can get people in your community to train, or, you know, a lot of times people starting out, I remember a few times schools just opening up and starting out, and they're like, well, you know, I'm not sure how to get people into my gym. I'm like, listen, if you have a couple people that you're training with right now and you're training, just keep giving them good value and get some information and testimonials. Then you could slap together some videos, and from there you could use that as a jump off point. I think that for martial arts, and this goes back to what we were talking about too before, is that you have that community feel, because it is a location in a neighborhood usually, right? So when you go online, you kind of lose that community feel. So it's important that when you're in an area that you have outreach and you can try to connect to as many businesses around you. I know my jiu-jitsu coach, he pretty much knows everyone in the area and the shopping mall and everything. And they're constantly trying to recruit new people to come in and try. And then everybody's like, no, I don't want to get beat up. I'm like, dude, you're not going to get beat up. Don't worry about it. You know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, it is interesting. I see schools, because I go to schools, right, to check them out when we take them on in a coaching course or is lead gen. I often do sessions with them to go through the whole structure of everything with the school, right? And I see schools which have never run an ad, right? They do zero advertising. And that all comes from word of mouth.
All
right?
Right.
But often they'll get to a plateau, and that's when they reach out, because they need to push past that by doing some actual active reach out or some advertising or whatever it is, right? But I also find that people aren't great at displaying why their people are actually coming, right? And so when I went through, I always am trying something new in martial arts, right? I like to try a bit of everything. My new thing in my mind that I want to do is judo. I'm like, oh no, I need to know more about takedowns, so I've got to do judo, because I've got ADD, right? So it just means I'm going to be all over the place. I've got to try something new all the time. But I'm putting that on the back burner. But my sort of decision-making process was very specific with finding a BJJ school. I had to go out and look at all their websites and think about the lineage and who the trainers are and like what the long-term, if I'm going to commit that time, because I'm going to commit a huge amount of time to it, right? And when I was going through these schools, I was looking at them and thinking, wow, like some of the schools don't display, say, lineage, or they don't display like why people do BJJ, or why that's good, or why MMA, or what the pathways is, or are they doing competition? Do they have a ring? Do they even have photos of the actual dojo? So there's all that detail. And I think like it's so many little 1%ers that people might add in. They might go, oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to add some of those things that, like I've just listed off, and they'll go, okay, here's a picture of the dojo and here's a couple of things. And they're like, oh, well, it didn't really change anything. But it's all little 1%ers, and there's like 100 of them, which can double your whole outreach, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the same for those little conversations. I think those little conversations, like you're saying with the shopping center, knowing everybody, right, or being a sort of pseudo-public figure in the local area, it's a million little micro conversations. But on the same side, on the flip side of that, any negative little conversations that go on, they can also be virally worse. In fact, 10 times worse, because the negatives get picked up and passed on so much more than sort of the positive stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's always like a bit of a war for dojos to go. It depends. I mean, it depends how competitive they are, like how much competition there is in their local area. But I think it's a bit of a constant grind for some people, and they sort of get tired, or they do a burst of it and then stop, right? And you also probably see this with marketing with your dojos, right? Like they'll go, okay, cool, we're going to get all this video, do a burst of marketing, and then all the effort goes out and they get some result, and then it stops, right? And then they wait for a while, and then it's sort of like crisis point again, and then there's another marketing effort, right? Do you find that happens?
100%, 100%.
Yeah. And frustrating as a marketer, because my sort of thing with it is I want to keep people consistently always having a grind of people coming in. And that often will mean changing up their marketing, right? So we might run a campaign for kids and then adults and then program and then another program and have that variation so we don't burn those eyeballs. But ultimately what happens is there's a variation in success. So one program is always going to be most successful, easiest, low-hanging fruit in an area. So let's say it's kids, right, of a certain age group. If you run then their next program, like adults program or women's program, and it doesn't do as well, they're like, no, go back to kids. That was working really well. So we'll burn that to the ground first.
Right. And then that slows down.
That slows down, and then it's, okay, well, now we're going to go on to these other ones, but we've really burnt the audience totally, right, at that point. Yeah. So there's a bit of management there. And that's why, like, I think that you're right in that you do have to have those interpersonal connections. So you can turn your advertising down. Like, even though I run ads, I prefer that people don't smash ads to death all the time. Consistent, but not like overreaching, because otherwise it burns that audience. And it's got to have that variation, you know?
Yeah. Everything has ad fatigue after a while.
Mm.
You know, and like, to touch on what you just said, if you think about it, this is probably a pet peeve of mine as a marketer. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like, and I make these two analogies, especially to martial artists. I'm like, okay, so first off, you have to understand that you have a black belt by showing up consistently for years and years and years. Yet at the same time, I've hear a lot of martial art owners, you know, talk about, hey, they're students that you need to show up. You need to show up at least 3 times a week. You need to put in the work. You need to be on the mat to progress. But first month goes by, it's not really hitting, or it's kind of hitting, and you're ready to bail. That is not congruent. Second thing is if you were in a fight and you're jabbing at the person and the jab's not really working, you're not going to continue to stand there and jab, right? Because what's going to happen? You're going to lose the fight. So you're going to have to switch up and pivot. And I find that as a marketer, one of the things that can frustrate me sometimes is that, like you said, you have to be able to look at it from a perspective of, like, this is a war of attrition. It's not a skirmish. It's not a little battle. It's going to be a long, drawn-out war. So how are we going to – you might win some battles. You might lose some battles. But overall, if you're creating leads and you're signing up people over a long time, you're going to have those months that are just sluggish for whatever reason. It could be time of the year. It could be, you know, that the algorithm on these social platforms, which happens a lot, they just change up out of nowhere. We've had ads that were crushing it. And then 1 month out of nowhere, they just, the price spikes. They stop working. So you have to adjust them and look at them and adjust. And it's like a fight. It's like jiu-jitsu. It's like, you know, an MMA fight. You have to constantly adjust to your opponent, and your opponent is constantly adjusting to you too. So that's a big key point. I think that more, not just martial arts school owners, I think more entrepreneurs in general, business owners, need to understand that marketing is not just like a set it and forget it. It's very rare. Like, if somebody who runs ads and stuff like that, you could see this. Like, I would say out of 100% of the times of running ads, 20% of the time that ad hits, you don't have to do anything. But 80% of the time, you have to adjust and adjust and adjust until you get there. Would you agree?
I would agree in a way, but my advertising is a very narrow scope, right? So my advertising is Facebook ads. So I pretty much have figured out how to manage them. But when I started, 100%, I would have to, and not to say like it's an experience thing, but it's more like I know the times of year that are right for specific programs for specific school areas, right? Or I know the times of year that you can't run those. And so, but there was a lot of time where I had this very dynamic move. And it's more when you get stuck, right? Like, so sometimes ads are in an economic zone where they work. Like if a lead is $5 to $35, right? There's probably going to be fine, because at $35 a lead, if you sell 1 in 4, you still got sort of cost of acquisition is fine, right?
Right.
But if you're sort of starting at 25 and then you're creeping up over that, over the period of a campaign, then you've got to adjust and keep it moving and reset it and duplicate ad sets and do all those fundamentals. But here's a really interesting analogy about it that I think you'll like. Is I saw this meme the other day, and it was for marketing, right? And it was saying there's the statistical marketer, and I'm sort of like that guy, right? Like, I'll sit there and I know the CPM, what it should be, the click-through rate. I know what the clicks should be versus the click-through rate, and the sort of and what that means about an ad and how much copy people are reading and all that sort of stuff. But as far as the actual content in itself, the imagery, the video, I don't have that much control over that because I'm getting it from the dojos. And sometimes they'll hand me gold and it will crush on a campaign. And there's really not that much work involved in the technical side. But it's if you don't have fantastic imagery, or you have high competition or very low audience, then you've got this war on your hands, like you say. Like, you're trying to find that audience in there. You're letting the algorithm do the work. You're split testing. You're doing all sorts of creative and headlines and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, over time, I've sort of figured out essentially how to roll them out and have them work. So there's a little bit of adjustment. But if I was doing, say, Google ads and Facebook and other stuff, or, you know, more Instagram specific things, then I'd have this trouble all over the place, right? That's why I've sort of narrowed it down to the one niche on Facebook ads, because I've sort of figured out the exact offer setting structure, sales structure that goes with it and all that. And even if you get good leads, then you've still got to have a good sales team.
Right. That's
the number one thing. Like I was mentioning earlier, like our ads are just crushing at the moment at all dojos that we're doing, right? But also all the sales teams are just hitting their spokes at the moment. Like, I had someone call me this morning and they had 56 leads in the last 2.5 weeks, and they'd closed into trial 46 of them. So they're at like 78% or something for actual into trial, which is great. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't care too much about the trials, but the trials tend to turn into members, right? As a general rule, we actually usually only measure members. So I don't really even ask them about the trials. I'm like, how many member signs do we get? But that was just a good case example. But it's not always like that. Like, sometimes people can get all these leads and they're not closing them, right? So there's a sales process, and that's where we sort of coach people through that sales process. But I wanted to get your opinion on this, is how do you think, how simple should you keep your pricing in Dojo and your offers to link with it? Because like, from a marketer's perspective, I see two options, right? One is variation is really good. And let's say I'm running ads on Facebook and I'm doing different offers. I might run the 10 days for $10 offer. I might run the $29 in a free uniform, or I might run a month for $50, or I might run like a free class pass. And they all get leads, but it will vary a little bit. But it's different types of people because of the different nature of the offer. But if you vary it like that, you're going to get more leads, right? Because it's something new all the time, and the different offers will ping a different personality type. However, it's not good for the sales end, because at the sales end, the staff are sort of, especially in big dojos, right? Like like a lot of ours are sort of 700 plus. And we've got lots of staff. And so they find the management of it at the other end difficult. And they sit there and they're like, oh, we just need one like offer.
Right.
And as far as trial offer, right? But then also there's pricing offers that can vary. So there's the two different pricing variations, right? Trial offers, and which I just ran through, and then like the actual pricing itself. And traditionally, dojos have tended to go on the very simple, like $40 a week or $30 a week, or whatever it is, unlimited classes, because it's just so simple to manage, right? And we have a different pricing structure where we go by number of styles and number of classes, but it's very complicated, right? So these things can sort of overwhelm the actual staff in a little bit. And I'm sort of looking at the two options and let people pick now a little bit. I was wondering what your thoughts are on like pricing and how you link offers to pricing. And if you do lead gen, do you get people to buy the trials online, or do you get them to come in as leads and then call them and sell them?
To be straight, we've done so much in terms of different businesses doing it so many different ways. We've had it run the gamut. Everything from free trials to paid trials. I'm seeing these days that, so like you said, it becomes a management nightmare in some senses of trying to organize, okay, this person came on in a free offer, right? You're going to speak to them in this way. This person came in a paid trial. They're probably a little bit more affluent. You need to deal with them this way. And to touch back on what you said earlier, which is so true, and it's not just for martial arts, it's for so many different businesses. It's like almost, I don't even want to put a number to it, but I would say I've spoke to so many businesses that have a hard time outlining exactly what it is that they do, exactly what it is that the benefits are that they bring to the table. It's not, people are really getting their lives changed, and they're doing it through the vehicle of martial arts. But you could do it through the vehicle of yoga. You could do it through the vehicle of fitness. So what I'm finding is that, at least for me, so I'm not going to speak so much on how to do it for individual schools, because I could tell you this from doing this 10 years and dealing with thousands of customers and school owners. Everyone has different. I've found that the types that work the best is either free trial, right? And they come in, and then at that point, sign them up into a program, or have something like, the 2 weeks at $29 or $39 or whatever, or per. The other one that I saw work a lot was like 1 week for like $39 and the uniform included or whatnot. But it just runs the gamut so much. I've recently seen people doing, I guess they challenges, right? And they're challenges that are free challenges, but you have to front $400 up front, and then you get the money back on the back end.
If the bait and switch.
Right,
yeah.
Which I'm not really a big fan of. I think keeping it as transparent and easy for you to manage it is the best way to do it. On top of it, too, I think a lot of times that a lot of businesses, they are fearful of committing to an individual avatar of a person. So because they want to get a lot of different people in.
Yeah.
Right. But
everyone and no one.
Right. The truth is, you're not going to get everyone. And it's better to niche down if you can and figure out exactly who's buying from you. I've had people come to us and say, well, lots of moms in the area, they're middle class, they're making anywhere from 50 to 60, 70,000 a year. They drive this kind of car. That's the type of person that's really in our school. Okay, great. That's a low-hanging fruit. Those are who you should be aiming for. Fill up from there, and then you can grow from there. But trying to manage multiple offers, for me, especially in my business, becomes nightmarish. And on top of it, too, I don't know, from you, maybe you can shed some light on that. From a marketing standpoint, from a social media and Facebook, don't you dilute the audience, kind of?
Yeah, well, I mean, you wouldn't run them both at once, but
so you would
but more like you might do like a campaign of 6 weeks of $10 for 10 days, and then the next 6 weeks on, let's say that was on kids, you go adults for whatever and change the offer up. But what I've found is that even though that's better for the volume of leads and cost of lead, and if you could handle it inside as far as the actual logistics, that would be better. It doesn't actually work en masse. Like generally people don't want to do it. It's too dynamic. Right. So now we're sort of looking at it and going, well, we'll do one steady offer. That's it for each dojo. Kids, adults, doesn't matter what program. That's the sort of lead-in trial. And then the program is however they sell their program. Right. So it just simplifies it a little bit. And
what would be like the offer, the trial offer? Just
well, it depends, because if let's say it's BJJ, right? I'd probably do a good one that I've seen is like they can come in on a free trial. So they do that free trial class, because some people just don't like it, right? They're just not going to do BJJ, right? So they got to do that first class. You're not going to sign them up to a $50 thing, then you got bad will on your hands if they're just like, nah, this is not for me. And then maybe once they're like, yeah, I love this, I'll do it, then give them a month for $50, right? Or $49, because that sort of gives them that time where they'll buy a uniform. Uniform's expensive, right? Or more expensive. So you can't give that away. And then you could give them, say, as they lead in, 50% off their joining fee if they join in the first 2 weeks of that month. So after a week and a half, if people are rocking up, they're going to join. So they're like, yeah, okay, I'll join. And they just join in 2 weeks. But they still get the value. So they still have that month of time. And also if you're a mixed dojo, like you got, say, BJJ, MMA, or karate, or taekwondo, or Muay Thai, all mixed in together, they can try all the different things, right? Because ultimately, if it's a fight gym and they want to go and fight eventually, they might try an MMA class or a Muay Thai for striking stuff as well as the BJJ, but they'll probably want to go from one to another, right? Mm-hmm. That depends on obviously their internal offer, but that's a nice one there. But also I would look at things like your classic kids one, $29 and a free uniform if they join as a member, right? So that's good, because you could say $29 for 5 classes. 5 classes is good because you sort of like, it's under 2 weeks. You get them in under 2 weeks. So the lead time between there and joining is not too long. But you can trial flip those. So if someone comes in and they buy that $29 offer, you just have them roll onto a normal membership off the back. So you explain all that, but if they want to pull out before then, if they move, like I would typically say, look, if you move away or something comes up, or they roll their ankle or something, then there's no obligation to go on. But after that, it becomes the rolling membership. So there's no double sign up, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yeah.
That's a trial flip. But a bait and switch is what you were talking about with the 6-week challenge. I know who you're talking about. I've seen a marketing company do this one a lot, or pushing the idea of it. I don't like it, right? And for the 2 reasons. One, it's too long. So if you've got a 6-week program, people do that 6-week program, then they leave. And I see this a lot with kickboxing for fitness stuff. People will go, they'll do it. They'll do a 6-week program, and then they'll leave. If your cost of acquisition is good for that, game on. Just roll people through it every 6 weeks. But if your cost of acquisition is too high for that to be economical in itself, right? And when I say in itself, I mean an average martial arts client is around $2,000 of value. They'll stick around for about 11 months, we've found from our research, which means, first of all, you've got to get your pricing right to get that sort of amount of capital, but it's got to be above 1,500, right? Depending on your costs of a business, obviously. But I'm talking about your big corporate type, like not big corporate, but your big, well-equipped, high-functioning, high-end product dojos, right? And so if your cost of acquisition is, say, 150, right, per client, like that, and that's high, it shouldn't be that high, but let's say you're in a competitive environment, your lead gen cost is high, and you can still squeeze people in for that, and you don't have a great sales team, then that's 10 to 1. 10 times ROI, right? So that's okay. But if you spent, say, 100 and you got a 6-week challenge person in and they paid 400, well, that's 25% of revenue on acquisition in advertising. It's way too much, right? And then the idea is that they do that and stay. But if you're selling it as a whole course in itself, people will do it and leave. And I see that as a bit of a rookie mistake. In Australia, we've had a lot of people do those courses, and the market has actually realize they can go and do that at a cheap rate and then move from one to another around the place. And they like it because it's fresh. They get a new trainer, they can try something new, and they tend not to stay, right? Yeah. I'm that customer. Like if I was going to go and do a fitness thing, I'd go do a 6-week program, then I'd leave. I wouldn't do a 6-week program and then go, oh, well, now I'm going to upgrade to personal training or something. No, I'd be fit by the end of it and off I go, right? So the psychology of it doesn't make sense from a business perspective of what people want to do as far as actually growing a community, like a permanent community dojo, in my opinion. And the bait and switch as well, I see as problematic, because if you say to someone, you turn up and you do everything, so you get the result and then it's free, then you lose if you provide the best possible like follow-up. There's no incentive for you to make sure they get the result, right? I mean, there's the incentive of obviously you want to train people and have them get a great result and all that sort of stuff. But for the business, if they then do that and leave, then that's the worst possible thing, right? And as we sort of discussed, I think that's what often happens with these short programs. If they don't turn up to a couple, or they don't, or like you hold them to those terms and conditions, and it's like, well, you missed 3 weeks in the middle, you're still stuck around for the whole thing, and then they want a refund. Well, then you've got an unhappy customer on your hands, right? And
the court of public opinion is no good.
The court of public opinion is no good. So marketing is often about, people often think about of it in just the pure logistics of the business, as far as like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go $500, $600 per person. They sign up and pay. They get it refunded later if they hit the result. That'll keep them accountable, and it all makes sense in our heads. But then from a customer's perspective, most customers are not super disciplined. They're not going to turn up to every class. Something could come up, or they're signing up because they're struggling with their fitness in the first place, right? So their chances of doing that is not high. And then they're disillusioned. They miss 1 class or 2 classes or whatever your terms are that you say, oh, if you miss 2 weeks in the middle, or if you miss a certain number of classes, then they see it as undoable to get to the final result. Right. And they're thinking about money rather than about the actual how awesome it is to be in there and do stuff. So it's just a wrong paradigm for me, I think. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that sort of bait and switch tactic?
No, I completely agree with you. And also too, like if you ever gone to any type of like, I don't know if there's any Sam's or Costco's by you, but over here there's like these big warehouse type stores, and they always have these little islands where they're giving you little pieces of cheese or whatever to test out, right? You're gonna test them, you're like, they're not gonna give you an actual sandwich and say, here you go, After you're done eating the sandwich, you're like, I'm full. I don't need any more cheese. I'm out of here, right?
So, you know what it is? It's a great example, right? It's like a lunch bar giving you a free lunch.
Exactly.
And expecting you then to keep coming back. Well, you're like, I'll wait till the next free lunch comes up at the lunch bar next door. And invariably, everybody does these things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, to say what you, the type, so maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, there was, Groupon was huge, right?
Yep.
And we used to, so a lot of schools would run Groupon program, like Groupon ads, and they would get a lot of free trials. A lot of people coming in on like $29 for 6 weeks, and lots of people would show up, but very little people would actually sign up because they were considered Grouponees. They would go from Groupon to Groupon to Groupon.
That's exactly what exactly right.
So you're giving too much, I think. And to touch on what you were saying before, like if we brought it back to the ad stuff, that is the reason why like we created the Dojo Muscle Up program, because so many people have a hard time explaining what it is that they're doing in the first place. And in my own world, outside of just the martial arts industry, I've found that, the creative that you're running for your ads is probably anywhere from 60 to maybe 70% of the actual lifting, the heavy lifting.
100%.
If you get that nailed, right, the copy and everything in the offer, very important. And then the other thing, we've had hundreds of people in that program at this point. And one of the big pushbacks would always be like, hey, we're getting a lot of people to our landing pages, but nobody's signing up. And I'm like, well, if you're getting people to the landing pages, there's a good chance that the ads are actually working. It's at the landing page that there's some kind of disconnect. That
100%.
And I'll look at it, and there's a lot of times they'll send them straight to a checkout page. I'm like, you're not having the conversation. You're not elaborating on the conversation. You're not keeping it going. The ad on Facebook, the video should essentially just be like, let me raise my hand. I'm interested in that, right? That's it. Now get them over to the page. You're going to do the hard selling on the page. And I find that is something that one of the reasons why we created the program in the first place is because that creative that we create tells the story better than most of the school owners can or are willing to do to the customer. And I know this because I'm the customer. I've been training jiu-jitsu now almost 11 years. I've boxed, I've trained Muay Thai. So I'm the customer. I understand the reasoning that me and all the people in my schools that I train at show up for in the first place. And explaining that is so hard, and it's also so important. So when we talk about like the bait and switch stuff, it's just, to me, it feels just disingenuous.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, like there's two parts of it. Obviously, there's a part of marketing. Marketing is getting people to click and generating awareness, right? And interest. And you got to do that, right? And in a sense, the offers, without an offer, you don't get that click. They're clicking for the offer makes them click, but the interest makes them look at an ad in the first place, right?
Right, exactly.
Or actually the content, right? But here's something that you'll like, right? So I've discovered, this is like something I discovered in the course of experimenting with ads. So huge problem with landing pages, and virtually no one building good landing pages that we can then send ads to, right? A massive problem. And no matter what I was doing, as far as I'd go through these, I'd audit them. I go, you need to do this, but then the format's off, or it's just badly written copy or whatever it is, right? So then my thing was, okay, well, we're not going to run ads to landing pages because we can get awesome click-through rates. We know it's the right people, same sort of click-through rates as our lead gen that generates the leads that sell. But we're just not going to do it because, or we'll do it as a test when you build a new landing page for me, but I'm not going to push people to build those landing pages, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, our lead gen does really well, but often people have too many questions or too many question marks, right? So over time, we've started to add in more questions on those lead gen pages, right? On actual Facebook. So we can ask them like location, because the typical objections would be too far away, or they haven't shown an interest particularly, like they haven't said why they're interested. But once they've said they're interested in something, that's the principle of congruence, right? They're like, I'm interested in this because I want to teach my kids some discipline, or my kids got low confidence, whatever. But that's like made them write it, right? So those two things hugely important. But then I realized, well, if I'm not going to a landing page, they don't really know anything about the actual, the copy. There's not enough copy telling them times of classes, the actual programs, because often our customers, like our actual dojos, will have lots of different kids programs. They might have kids Muay Thai and kids karate and kids jiu-jitsu and kids whatever, right? And then the different age groups. And the different age groups do different things. So like a 3 to 5 will do different to a 6 to 9. So what I did was I thought, well, if we look at a Facebook ad, you know how it's got like 3 lines and then see more, and you can see more copy. So the 3 lines and the image and the headline and the description that you can just see up front, that is the ad, right? Essentially in the practical, in the real world terms, right? So you've got the real headline, which is actually the top line of the text, 2 lines below that, and then the headline, an image or video, and the description. That is like what functions for us as an ad. But what I realized is once people click the see more button, they open up more copy. Now, if you write really long copy, marketers will look at it and go, no, huge mistake, because you're putting all this copy on there. No one's going to read that and then click through, right? In theory. But what I found out is that is not true, because essentially that is the landing page, right?
Yeah.
So I would have medium-sized copy previously, because I was like, well, we want to have enough info to get them actually involved and triage them so we know it's the right people. Now I do really long copy. I mean long copy. It's like that much Facebook copy. Way more effective. 100 million times more effective, or I could actually say in percentage terms, it's probably about 80% more effective, right? As far as converting people to trials and members. Because what we do is we write all the stuff we'd normally write, the offer. We actually write a little bit about the place. So I look at their website and I pick apart the terribly written copy and I rewrite it to look really awesome. We do like a tick list of all the impulses, so confidence and self-defense or whatever it is that's correct for that particular area. And then I literally do a little blurb on every single age range. So they go 6 to 9s, 3 to 5s, or women's for self-defense, women for martial arts, or women for sports, fitness. And then I write a little blurb on it. And then I've got the address and I've got the times of the classes. So people scan through all that, they pick one and they're making that decision there. So even though there's a first click and then a read and decision, it's like the landing page. And then the opt-in is so much better with Facebook lead gen ads. So you don't have to worry about their landing page being pixeled correctly and having CRM linked to it and all this sort of jazz. It's just bang straight in. It's working way better. So a massive improvement on our ads.
You know, it's funny that you say this, because about 1.5 years ago, I picked up a guy's program, and his name is Chris Rochiel. And he has this program called the Epic Ad Formula. It was like literally $37 or something, right? I grabbed it. Absolutely game changer, because I started to implement this about 1.5 years ago. We used to do the little paragraph as the ad, and then like get them over to the landing page. But I started to write copy like this long, right? And I started to crush the objections in the copy.
That's right.
And talking about all the benefits, and our ads have annihilated because of that. And everyone's like, and there's one really prominent point that he makes in the program that really stuck with me a lot. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. He's like, when Facebook was first created, it wasn't created to be an ad platform. It was created to be a conversational platform and content platform so that you can have conversations with other people that are like-minded. If you take ads, they still follow the same structure in Facebook, in the sense that Facebook is looking to show people content that's relevant to them. When you write a long post like this, you're actually having a long conversation with somebody. Facebook has to prioritize that stuff. So when we started to do that, I did it on 3 or 4 different ads, and it literally just blew up. And I was like, wow, this is the way to do it. And I still see a lot of marketers, not just in the martial arts world, but a lot of marketers still, doing the 4 lines and stuff like that. And then there's just not enough meat and potatoes. And I think that if you really boil it down, there's so many ads online at this point. There's so many people selling stuff. So people are skeptical, and rightfully so. There's a lot of stuff. You know how many times my wife bought stuff on Instagram and it like never came. Like, don't buy stuff on Instagram. So there's a lot of skepticism, and you have to beat that back by giving more and just really trying to get into the psyche of why your customers is doing what they're doing, why they're coming to you in the first place. I find that a lot of, and it's heavily prevalent in fitness and martial arts, where people rely on what they believe to be the notion of why their customer is training with them. And their belief is often way over here, and the customer's belief is over here. And then that disconnect, because they're not quite grasping that, hey, listen, I'm an expert level here. I'm expert level. And what I think about as a business owner is not what a customer is thinking about per se. I might think I know, but fielding that information and talking to customers as much as possible, I think, is the way around that, and to learning about your customer, what really drives them. Because what could drive somebody living in New York City as opposed to what can drive somebody living in Texas is two totally different things. You know, and knowing that.
Yeah, massive cultural difference
exactly.
in the States especially. Yeah.
So that's all really, really important stuff that I think that kind of goes to the back burner, because like you said, a lot of times people see it. And this is something else that a little bit of a pet peeve for me, is thinking that when you're hiring somebody to help with your marketing, that you could just go, here you go, I don't have to look at it anymore. It doesn't work like that, right? Like the key foundation.
That is literally my job.
Like, I try to
make it work. We make it work.
Yeah, like there's a part of it that owners of all businesses really need to understand, that you're delegating like the actual work, but you're not delegating the responsibility. The responsibility on the owner still falls on them, for them to understand their business. Like in accounting, right? You have to know basically the numbers of your business. Then you hire an accountant, and they can help you. But that accountant's not going to tell you, hey, there's a lot of things. They're not your financial advisor. So that's a big key point of it. I think as owners, people have to understand that you can delegate some of the work, but you're not going to delegate the responsibility out to somebody. You still have to understand what is driving your customer, especially if you're the owner.
Oh, no, 100%. But it is a common misconception that you could go, okay, let's hire someone to do marketing and go.
Yeah,
right.
That's it. I'm done.
And I had someone who is in the content creation area, and I said to them once about a business that they were doing some content for, and I'm like, you're going to do some filming coming up? Okay, cool. Can you make sure that you don't have the least fit, oldest person in the dojo in those images? And they said, look, Eddie, I can only turn up and do what is given to me, right? But if I'm given shit, I can't make it into anything but a shit sandwich for you, and exactly. It's still look like a sandwich. But it's not going to taste good on the ads.
Exactly.
And that's just so true. It's so true. There's so much more involved in content creation than just looking at it and going, "Oh yeah, we're just going to And well, some of it, taking filming class, fantastic, right? That you do need some of that. If your classes are presentable on camera, you can have someone that does it properly, right?
Right.
But and I sort of feel like there should be a combination of what it really is like, and that shouldn't be too far away from the glossed version. But the glossed version is just it's like a trailer to a movie. Right? A movie, it doesn't run at 100% pace the whole time, but a trailer almost always will, right?
Always.
And so, your ongoing content, those little snapshots can be at the movie pace, but the trailer's got to be at the fast pace. It is does that make sense? What I'm sort of saying?
You're like the only person that I think I've been using this analogy for maybe 5 years, maybe more than that, about movie trailers. Because if you think about a movie trailer, right, you see the most epic parts of the entire movie sliced together in under 30 seconds, and you're like, there's not even And a lot of times, and people get this misconception, like where they think that they have to sell in these trailers. You don't have to sell. You just have to elicit an emotional response. You just have to make them feel like when they're done watching that, be like, I want to go there and train because I'm pumped up and I'm ready to go. And it's the same exact thing for when you're making, videos for your school and whatnot. I see a lot of times people try to, hey, we're here and we're going to do this. And that stuff is okay for content for people who know you, but for cold audience, you have very small attention span, and you basically better hit it right within the first couple of seconds. If you really think about like the most epic movies ever, the trailers are a visual, like a story piece, right? And it's just emotion. And at the end of it, it's just like coming, summer 2020. They don't even say like, come in, you'll get 2 free popcorns and a soda.
Yeah, there's no offer. You don't need an offer. The offer is the movie's going to be epic. That's the offer.
And yeah, exactly. And I think that the internet, and especially social media, there's this carryover from direct marketing. Now, I think direct marketing has its place and it's very important, but I find we're now in the era of so much content being put out that we need that movie type feel where you get people just emotionally driven, right? And that's the reason why, like in our videos, we don't sell. We're literally talking about the emotional driver behind the reason somebody's coming to that program, and it works great. And we've seen super low ad costs because of it. So we'll literally focus the entire piece on one emotion. That's it, and if you can do that in your videos, and like, for instance, if you would take jiu-jitsu, for instance, and you would say like the majority of people that come to your school is men that are like above 35, right? There's so much that you could talk to about trying to reclaim some of their youth vigor, boosting their hormones and their testosterone because they're just feeling out of it. You want your wife to like look at you the way that she used to look at you. You feel confident, feel like you're capable. That's the driving force behind it. And people.
You know what got me, right? Have you seen the documentary Choke?
Yeah.
About the Gracies, right? I was watching that and I was thinking, and that's a long documentary as far as a long piece of content, right? So it's like 45 minutes, an hour and a half, something like that. But that's long. But I was thinking, like, what if you ran that as an ad? But that is going to sell people on jiu-jitsu. And then, of course, you might have your offer on top of it, right? And so, like, I think the short attention span, I think that's very true if you're in a limited format. Like if you've got an ad where you do have to get it in that 30 seconds, like an offer ad, right? But I think also, like, for content, people are forgetting there is that people get into things and then they watch these long. I don't think I follow anyone who has less than like 15-minute videos, right, on their actual content. And so there's that sell, but there's no offer, right? As far as like a tripwire offer, it's just straight into whatever the course is, right? And I've seen some like this in like copy. You're talking about a copy program you bought. Like I saw a copy program video. It's like an hour, like a webinar. It's like a webinar. It's like the idea of a webinar funnel, essentially, right? But I think certainly if you can conduce it down into a smaller format, like a shorter format, that definitely makes sense. But I was also thinking, right, that it depends on the customer. Because let's say you're going to put your kids into kids karate, then if you don't know anything about one karate to another to taekwondo, you don't know the difference. Well, they're homogenous product in your mind, right?
Right.
But it's just that it looks good and clean and fun in that short sort of moment. The involvement level is different. But if the involvement level is much higher, like let's say for myself in this last sort of period of starting BJJ, my involvement level is like I'm committing to this for a long period of time, and I wanted to look through everything in the business, make sure I'd enjoy it there, look at the culture a little bit. I did a free trial, just make sure. I watched all the videos online. I looked at the lineage of the guys there, and then I watched all these documentaries on BJJ and all this sort of stuff. And then I was just like total sold. There was no need for an offer or anything, right? But there's a totally different level of involvement. So I think if we're looking at, say, kids karate or and most martial arts, you'd have to say, are in that basket where you do need a short format and the best possible trailer sort of it. then I think that's very true. But I wonder what you think of long format. Like if you think of, like if someone's watching a 15-minute video, like I've seen people do it. I've seen coaches do it and boost hour-long sessions. It's one segment of their course. And then people are just so deep into it because your involvement level becomes so high, right? Like someone watching this interview with us knows something of what we know in marketing now, right? But we're not offering anything or selling anything. This is just so people can get a bit of info. And do you feel like it's the same? Like, and if people were going to make long content like that, what would it be? Or could you be selling the actual style rather than your dojo itself, but then your dojo or club or school just happens to be that style in their area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've seen, and we've used long form too. I've run ads that are like 45 minutes and stuff like that, and they've done well too. I found that if you're going to ice cold audiences, they don't even know who you are. They don't know anything about the topic. Short stuff works to get their attention, and then you can retarget them a little bit later. But I also, depending on, so like for instance, some people in the cold audience might not even know what the problem is at all, and they don't even know, like say for instance, jiu-jitsu. But there's a guy, if you take for instance a guy named, I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Garrett White. Garrett White. He has this thing called Wake Up Warrior, and Warrior Week. So basically, he created an hour and 20-minute movie, and that was his lead gen. It was like the first original video was like, I think like 10 minutes, and it was just kind of recapping of why you might feel. It's basically for men that are, you know, middle-aged and want to, very much similar to what we were just talking about jiu-jitsu, want to like find the vigor in life and everything, have all the things in their life. But there's more of a business component to it besides just the physical aspect. But he created this, you know, shorter trailer that you watch, and then you opt in to watch the hour something movie. Now, I've also run, you know, long pieces of content and built audiences through Facebook rather than, I found that too. I guess in the last couple of years, people have been a little bit more reluctant to give their email addresses the way that they used to. People were like, oh, and I think that's just a matter of, there's so much. I mean, I open up my inbox and I have so many emails every single day, right? So people are a little bit reluctant. People kind of skim through that, but still, we make a good portion of our sales through, you know, email marketing. Long form video is definitely powerful if you know exactly. Like you said, in those situations, I wouldn't be offering. I'd be more along the lines of crushing objections and just making it so that people really understand what it is, like the choke movie and stuff like that. People really understand what it is that you're offering in the first place. The only issue that I have with, and this goes back to what you were saying before, right? If you give me a pig, it's still going to be a pig if I put lipstick on it, right? I think that there is a misconception, and obviously I'm biased because I'm a producer, but there's a misconception that you can set up, and just ramble on for an hour, and it's going to hit the mark. And I find that a lot of school owners or business owners are not. You have to essentially become a performer when you're doing any type of videos, right? So a lot of people are performers already on the floor of their facility coaching people. So there's that one uptick for most coaches because they have, essentially they're doing public speaking every single day of their life, multiple times a day, right? But
yeah, massive advantage for martial arts businesses straight off the bat. Yeah.
Right. The ability to translate what they're trying to say to customers. But there is that thing that happens to people the minute the camera, they're like, I'm staring in the eye of death. They're like, oh my God. This and everything, I see it, like the blood goes out of their face and everything that they used to be powerful with people around them, they like kind of become monotonous. So I think that's a part of it. And there's a lot of practice that needs to happen when you're dealing with a camera as opposed to a person, right? But yeah, long form video definitely has its merits. And I've seen in some cases it worked really well, even better than, short videos. I think that a lot of times, in a long form situation, it's at least in what I've seen in my experience. Obviously, your experience might be different, but the customer kind of semi needs to know that there's a problem, but doesn't know exactly what the problem is. But I also found on the other side of the spectrum, and especially like Facebook data and stuff like that, like literally the average watch time on a video is 3 seconds, which is
But I mean, I often think I wonder a lot about those stats, and I wonder that if that in a way that's the triage, right? So like if someone only watches 3 seconds, they're highly likely to not be the ones clicking through, and it's the ones that watch through it that click through. But that also brings us onto the retargeting, right? So like I see it so much for marketers where they're looking at teaching, say, gyms, martial arts, single location-based businesses where people can only go from so far away. And they're saying, oh, well, you should do lookalike audiences and retargeting, rah, rah, rah. But the thing is, and I've tested this extensively, that let's say you do a 15-second video view and then you retarget. Well, you have to spend about 70% of your budget on that video, and then you'll get a much better lead rate on the retargeting, but you've already spent all these dollars, right? And then the overall, the number doesn't match up as well as, say, an offer or a short ad, like a lead gen ad, right? And so we don't do that. And then the other one is lookalike audiences. So I've extensively tested with every single location, like lookalikes of their customer base, lookalikes of people who have opted in previously, and then going against broad audience, and broad audience wins every time, right? And what I find really interesting about it is that the algorithm and the way the numbers work, it's sort of complicated, obviously, you understand it, right? But a lot of people look at coaches, and I've seen coaches right now on Facebook that are smashing the whole world. I'm not going to name names, but like I literally have his face in my mind because I see his ads every day. And number one, they're doing the same. I've talked to people who do these programs, and they're doing the same marketing, or they're training people to do the same marketing for a martial arts dojo that they do as a coach, because they've learned it for themselves. They do it well themselves because they're doing coaching marketing. Like Tima, we use coaching marketing, and it's totally different to martial arts marketing. And like I'm just like looking at it, I'm like, ugh. And I feel like you can't call it out, but there's also a certain level of it where it's like
I call it out.
I know people are getting ripped off terribly by it, right? And the format that coaches will tend to do is the click through to a landing page, opt in with email retargeting sequence, second page with a webinar or a VSL, so a video sales letter, and then a call, phone, and in. That does not work well for martial arts marketing because that's much more high involvement. It will work, but not as well as, and not economically and sustainably like running lead gen and calling people. It's just a completely wrong way of running marketing, right? And it's crazy that you have people that learn to do coaching marketing, can market themselves well and take big chunks of cash off people. Like we have a rule in Tima that we don't do, like we don't go, here's 20 grand for our program and that's it for the year, right? And charge people up front. That is what a lot of people are doing, right? Whereas with us, we're like, okay, we'll run your lead gen. It's month by month. If we're not smashing it for you, then you don't continue. That's it. And everybody continues because
you deliver
month by month. We have to deliver, It's
right,
like
exactly.
And I find that amazing that that's happening, and there's no way. And I think that's why people mistrust coaching or marketing, because they've been burnt so many times, and it's super duper frustrating. And sometimes people aren't great at sales, and so you can bring them leads, they won't sell.
But they can.
And you can have. I've had this case about 3 or 4 times, right, where we've had a big client, and in the same town, the other big client. They've come, we've generated them leads first day, bang. I know that they're good leads because they're completely qualified, like name, email, phone number, a couple of questions. And then they'll burn these leads, right? And then we'll do the other person in town, exact same type of dojo, and they'll crush those leads. Same leads. I see the same names on the different people's things opting in. I'm like, you've already opted in for something else. Why didn't they sell to them, right? It's crazy. So the sales component of it is super important. Like if people can nail down that sales component at that end, but they also need to have someone that can train them, either train them marketing, right, to do it themselves. It's not massively challenging, or run it consistently for them, if that makes sense. And super crazy. And the other thing is, I don't like to sort of do the whole distrust in the industry thing, like I've just done, right? Which is terrible in a way. In my mind, I'm like, Eddie just had to vent at some point, right? But it does create distrust in the industry, right? Because we sit there and do it. But I think something like what we're doing today, where we can sit and go through like exact strategies, like what's the exact strategy? And we've pretty much done it today. We've gone, what is an ad? What is on copy? What format do you use? What's the targeting? We've run through all those things. And I think people can go and do that themselves, right? If they want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like you said, like the responsibility to learn things often. And sometimes I have to say to people in our groups, like they'll say, do you have a template for this and a template for that and template? Like, do you have a checklist for this? I'm like, no, I don't have a checklist for being a fucking business owner, right? You've got to go and learn to be a business owner. And that means sometimes you write a list of things and print it out on Word. That's it.
That's it.
I don't have a checklist for that. Or do you have a format for? Do you have a format for landing pages and ads? No, because every single business should do it totally differently, because it's your business and you're selling something totally different. Otherwise, you're selling to no one. You're doing the sell to everyone, sell to no one. If it's the same formatted thing over and over with everything, then it's too boring. No one's going to buy it. I want something different. Like if I'm going to go and buy from somewhere, I want it to be different for a reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to teach, but you can be taught in a way, but you've got to be like upfront with people, I think.
Also too, as a customer, you have to be open to it. Like you have to be open to saying, okay, I don't really know, but I'm going to learn and I'm going to implement, and I'm going to probably get my ass handed to me a few times until I start to understand, like, you're riding a bike, you're going to fall down a bunch of times until you learn to balance, and then you're good to go. And to touch on what you were just saying, and I don't want to, bash anybody in the industry in that sense. But right around the whole coronavirus thing, I had it kind of out in a bunch of groups with a few coaches who kept saying, like, you have to sell this high ticket stuff. You have to sell it in this way. And I'm like, guys, you're selling how to make money. It's not the same thing as selling martial arts lessons, which in reality is not a necessity. I love martial arts to death, but it's a luxury item, right? It's not a necessity where it's like food and water. But as a business owner, it's a necessity that you increase your profit margin. It's a necessity that you learn functions that are going to continue to grow. But trying to utilize the same way, like I know very well the way that I market Dojo Muscle to the masses is not the same way as school owners market to their customers. I'm going B2B, they're going B2C. I'm going worldwide, they're going small locations, right? So it's a different way of handling it. And having it where, I think that's the truth, is there's so much out there that people mistrust. And I see a lot of the same players in a lot of these groups. They go from one group to the next group to the next group. They're all searching for, that one thing. And listen, I've invested a lot of money in my own education, my own self-education. I'm in the Arate Mastermind right now. I was in Frank Kern's. I've been in I've gone to a lot of events. But at the end of the day, at this point in my career, I'm looking for little gems, like little tidbits that I could take away. I'm not looking for somebody to tell me exactly what I need to do, because I've come to the realization, like you said, no one's going to be able to tell me exactly what I need to do, because no one's business is exactly like mine. The only person that's going to tell me exactly what to do is me. That's it. And I think that is for not just martial arts school owners, but just business owners in general. They want to be leaders, but a lot of times they want somebody to follow and tell them exactly, do this, do that, and do this. And then there'll be sometimes in situations be like, well, I did everything that you told me, but it's not working. It might not, like, that's a framework, right? I could show you the footwork on boxing, and I could show you the punch combinations in Muay Thai, but you are the person that's going to know how long your reach is, how fast your feet are. And those are the things that no one really could teach you but yourself. And those are the things, once you understand that, you can adjust on the fly. But to really, if a school is trying to, you know, build their marketing, and the biggest thing is like they really have to kind of be brutally honest with themselves and really learn all of this stuff. But like you said, like that's some stuff that kind of burns me up a little bit, and it does create mistrust. Like in our program, it's month to month, and I don't want you staying in the program if you don't feel like you're getting value from it. I want to be able to, and in some senses, it takes the training, it takes the safety net off for us, because we have to constantly deliver. If we don't deliver, we don't eat. We don't have customers, right? So we're constantly staying at the forefront of the bleeding edge and saying, okay, I have to learn. I have to constantly grow. And there are other coaches out there, and it's not just this industry. It's so many other industries. I just saw I saw somebody the other day. It's like, I'm going to have a one-day event, and it's going to be 10 grand. I'm like, dude, I have no problem coming and paying 10 grand if I'm really going to get it. But if it's going to be me there watching you in your awesome house talk about yourself the entire time, I'll stay here. I don't need to spend time, you know?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we've all, like people like ourselves, we've invested a certain amount in that, and you invest in a certain number of those courses or in specific marketing stuff, even copy. And you do then get to a point where you are hearing the same things with the nuggets, right?
Yes.
But those nuggets then stop being worth 10 grand, 20 grand to go and do a course, right? And also, you get to a point where you look at it and go, even if I followed to the T a course, right, in marketing, and so this is relevant to people in martial arts marketing, if you go and follow a course to a T, it may work. It most of the time should work. Otherwise, that's just terrible, right? If their marketing doesn't work as a broad spectrum, right? Mainly because if you're going to train marketing for martial arts, let's say, or for a niche, it should work for the majority of the niche, right? Unless they have those you know, specific circumstances, really small audiences or whatever, right? The specific small ones. But then, even then, you've got to look at it and go, do I want to do it like a carbon copy of that just to get it done? And it came back to what we said right at the beginning, is it's not about just getting it done. The marketing is the product in a way, right? So it's an extension of the product. It's your public face of your product. And so the marketing should be good, and it should be endearing and part of what's happening, and an update on things, even for the current clients, right?
Yeah.
So imagine your current clients see an ad or whatever, and they're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm going to go do that, right? Then that's like, for me, that's the ultimate in marketing, is that your current customer still sees it as cool. They don't look at it and go, oh, yeah, I came in on something like that, right? Or it's not just an offer. It's not just an ad. It's really displaying your love of what you do, or the intricate details of why you're different, right? And that's real marketing, you know? So often the cookie cutter approach would work, except for the fact that it's a cookie cutter approach, that it screams advert, right? And in coaching, it's terrible. Like, you see the same funnel over and over and over, millions of people. It's a paradox, really, because the really successful coaches of coaches have sold so many people that they've turned all their customers into duplicates, and they've ruined the funnel themselves. There's an irony to that, right?
Yes.
And so, like, that's the whole thing. Like, what I'm trying to do now is something innovative and different with copy and structures and the way that we do things. And there's conventional wisdom that doesn't necessarily apply sometimes, right? And that's when it becomes really mastery. And not everybody needs to get to that point. I think if you organically love your club, you can get it there without that. And that's basically marketing.
That is it. And, you know, like, I think that is probably one of the most prominent skills that every business owner needs to learn. And it's one of the skills that a lot of them don't want to learn. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like you have to, it's the lifeblood of your business. Marketing often is the first. And if you look at statistics, it's probably the last time they're ever going to do business with you, because if the statistics didn't show that, then everybody would be rich and they'd be closing 80% of the people. But the truth of the matter is, most people are closing anywhere from 5 to 15% of the people that come through. So there's a huge portion of people that just never really connect with you, and being able to connect with people via copywriting and understanding your marketing. I don't think that you have to be a master marketer, but you definitely have to put the time in to understand that. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fundamental business, right?
Yeah.
And without it, even if you're not doing it, you need to know it, because you've got to be able to look at the ads that someone puts out and go, yeah, that just makes 0 sense, or that's not going to work, or it doesn't fit with our sales. And those skills, that's being a business person. You can't train that. You can help people to learn it with some confronting coaching sometimes. But essentially, as business owners, they got to start enjoying doing the things, or at least it should look like you're enjoying doing the things that aren't the things you started to do the business to enjoy, right? Yeah. People don't get into martial arts and coaching people in martial arts to do accounting and bookkeeping and CRM and all this sort of stuff, and marketing and making content and all that sort of stuff. And if it looks like that when you're making content, that's not going to work.
Right.
So you either have to find someone in there and get them to do it, or you've got to learn to love it, right? But that's business. Business is tough.
Business is tough. It's a different hat. It's a different skill set. You know, when you became a business owner and you decided to open a martial arts school or barbershop or anything, you're no longer a barber or a martial artist. You're a business owner first. And a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around that. Like, those are there are a lot of skills sets or a lot of things that you have to do as a business owner that aren't pretty, they aren't sexy. They're not really something that you really want to do, but you got to do them at first until you get to the point where you understand it and you have the cash flow and the capital that you can outsource that stuff. But I think that is probably one of the main reasons why so many businesses fail, because people haven't kind of, understood that they're no longer the technician. They're the owner now, right? And being a technician, being a barber is easy to show up and just cut hair. But as an owner, you have to worry about stocking the bathrooms with toilet paper and making sure everybody's payroll is paid on time. And is everybody happy? And what's the morale? And you got to put the good face on, right? Because you're the leader and everything trickles downhill. So if you're coming in with a bad attitude, and your staff is going to have a bad attitude. So there's so many things as a business owner. It's funny too. Like, we talk about that. A lot of people, I worked on Wall Street for a long time, and I left 9-to-5 job. You leave 9 to 5 to work 24/7, pretty much. You think you're going to be free, and you're constantly thinking about business all day long. I'm even on vacation. I'm laying on the beach and I'm like, okay, well, I can make this funnel and I could probably have this product. My wife is like, are you going to relax and just chill? I'm like, I am relaxing and chilling.
That's like when people say, there is no laptop lifestyle. Oh no, there's a laptop lifestyle. It's when you're on holidays and you can't get off the laptop when you're on the beach.
And you're trying to see the screen with all the glare. I'm like, who made these computers? They're not meant for the beach.
No. I've learned to stop doing that to myself. Actually,
yeah,
I've learned balance. Enforced martial arts. Big tip for anyone who's watching this straight onto this that's not into martial arts. Martial arts every day, that will give you some balance you need.
Definitely.
So yeah, on the way out, I guess Dojo, Muscle, and Pixel Mob. How can people get in contact and take a look at what you guys do? And
so one of the big programs that we're running, and we've been running for over 2 years, with all of the video marketing that you could ever need, and you don't have to worry about like trying to figure it out yourself, is Dojo Muscle Up. DojoMuscleUp.com. You can take a look at any of the print stuff on DojoMuscle.com. We're actually working on getting a whole bunch of UK and Australia accent voiceover actors to have them for our videos. So we're going to be offering them for lots of different places around the globe. We've had people buy from everywhere. And pixelmob.com, that's 2 B's, PIXELMOBB.com. You can find me on Facebook at Christopher James Perilli, Perilli, and I'm on Instagram, and I very rarely am on Twitter.
No, you should stay off Twitter. It's terrible at the moment.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
At this point, I try to stay off the news feeds because it's a wild time right now.
No, I definitely have been setting my anxiety crazy lately. But yes, Dojo Muscle Up and Pixel Mob with 2 B's. Guys, check those out because there's some really awesome video that you can get. And what I really liked about it from an Australian perspective, and I guess people were watching this from the UK, Ireland, Scotland, Canada, you can get the local dialect either with, I guess, accent, right, for Australia, or also languages. I know you guys do different languages, right, for your videos?
We have, yeah.
Yep, and that for me was like a huge point, because I was looking at thinking, and often you can think, well, will it fit with Australia? And the answer is yes, right? So I really love your stuff. It's really awesome, and we're definitely recommending to everybody. So thanks for spending some time with us today, Christopher. It's been amazing. Actually, an awesome chat. I'd love to do this another time again and really dive deep. There's so much more we could go into. I know you've got to run because you've got things to do, but thank you so much for being part of Staying Strong again.
Thank you for having me.
We will catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, man.
Bye for now.